couple of years back, on Pesach, a friend of mine came to ask me a question that was asked to him by his 7-year-old son. And it's a question that I was not able to answer. The question was as follows. On Pesach, we celebrate Hashem taking us out of Egypt. And we're so grateful that Hashem took us out of Egypt. But isn't Hashem the one who put us into Egypt? So while we're praising Hashem for taking us out of Egypt, I mean, the whole thing, he never had to do the whole thing. It's like if somebody, you thank the doctor who fixed your, you broke your arm. You thank the doctor who fixed your arm and put it in a cast. But if the doctor is the one who broke your arm, then it's going to be kind of hard to be grateful to him for fixing your arm. It's a very powerful, deep question. The truth is that Moshe Rabbeinu might be asking a similar question in last week's Parsha. In last week's Parsha, Parsha Shemos, Parsha Shemos is let's say page 215. That's Parak Gimel Pasuk Yud Gimel. This is the moment at which the slavery becomes so intense, and Hashem turns to Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe Rabbeinu has the vision at the burning bush, and Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, go and tell the Jewish people that I'm going to take them out of Egypt. And Moshe says to Hashem, Vayomer Moshe el ha'elokim. And Moshe said to the Lord, Hinei anochi ba'al b'nei Yisrael, behold, I will come to the children of Israel, v'amarti lohem, and I will say to them, Elokei avoseichem shalachani aleichem, the God of your ancestors has sent me to you. Ve'amru li ma shemo, and they will say to me, what is his name? Ma omar aleichem, what shall I say to them? What is that question? This is the God of your ancestors, and they're going to want to know what is his name. So when we talk about Hashem's name, we understand that the name of Hashem, the truth is the name of anyone is an indication as to who they are, to what their job is, or what their way of showing up is. So when we use Hashem has many names, and when we use a specific name of Hashem, we're referring to a way that Hashem is manifesting, a specific program that Hashem is implementing. Look, you have a different name for me than my children do. And my co-workers have a different name for me than my clients. And my neighbors have yet a different name for me. And my family, my parents have all a different name for me. And that's because I manifest each of those people in a different way, with a different approach. So when Am Yisrael, when Moshe Rabbeinu is anticipating a question of Am Yisrael saying, the God of your ancestors is coming to you, they're going to say, what is his name? Maybe the question is, what the heck are you talking about? This God is going to take us out of Egypt? This is the God who put us in Egypt. What is this? What is this manifestation? What is this? What is this program? What is this approach? Is this a new God? A different God than the one who put us in Egypt that's going to take us out? Vayomer Elokim el Moshe, and God said to Moshe, the answer is, Eheyeh asher eheyeh. I will be what I will be, or I am what I am. That is, I'm very holy. I'm beyond. I am beyond. And then he says similar things in different words. The next verse, Vayomer od Elokim el Moshe, and Elokim further said to Moshe, Kosomar el bnei Yisrael, so shall you say to the children of Israel. Let me read the pasuk. And Elokim, Vayomer od Elokim el Moshe, Kosomar al bnei Yisrael, Adonai Elohei avosechem, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Shalachani aleichem. Zeh shemi le'olam v'zeh zichri l'dor dor. And Moshe and God further said, the Lord further said to Moshe, so shall you say to the children of Israel. Havaya. Havaya is the Kabbalistic way of saying the four-letter name of God. It's a Yud-K, Vav-K. You reorder the letters, and then you get Havaya, right? If you turn the letters around, you could say Havaya instead of, Yud-K, Vav-K, which we don't want to say. Havaya, Yud-K, Vav-K, the eternal transcendent manifestation of Hashem. Infinite, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzchak, and the God of Yaakov sent me to you. Zeh shemi le'olam. This is my name forever. V'zeh zichri l'dor dor. And this is my memorial unto all generations. The Talmud says, Zeh shemi le'olam. This is my name forever. Look at the word le'olam. The olam has many meanings. It means forever. It also means for the world. And it also means to be hidden. Forever is really within the continuous river of time. The ongoing river of time. And that's, even though we refer to it as forever, it's still within the river of time. And therefore it's of the world. And if it is of the world, then it means that Hashem is hidden. So when you're asking, what is the name of this God who claims to be ready to take us out of Egypt? How do I fit this into all of the other manifestations of God, including the one who put me here? So Hashem answers Moshe. Elokim answers Moshe. We should say Elokim answers Moshe. I am Havaya. The God of your ancestors, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And my name is in the river of time. For the world, it's hidden. And my remembrance from generation to generation. That is, what you know today would be different than what you know tomorrow. And in this might be a deeper understanding of the words by Daber, the first verse of this week's Parsha, Parshas Va'era, Exodus chapter 6, verse 2. In the previous verse, Exodus chapter 6, verse 1, or I should say Exodus chapter 5 at the end, verse 22, which is page 224. Hashem has sent Moshe to Pharaoh. Moshe went to Pharaoh, and then Pharaoh said, you guys are talking about forming a union. You guys are talking about getting better conditions for yourself. You guys are trying to negotiate a vacation package. Forget it. You guys are getting lazy. I'm going to make you work harder. So because Moshe Rabbeinu came to talk about going to worship, having some time for worship, right? Let my people go. Pharaoh said, I think you guys are not working hard enough if you have time to think about worship. And so the children of Israel came back to Moshe and they said, as soon as you started talking about leaving Egypt and going to worship God, life became harder for us. What have you done? And that brings us to verse 22. Vayashov Moshe el Hashem vayomar, and Moshe returned to God and he said, my Lord, lama hareosa la'am hazeh, why have you done evil with this people? Why have you sent me? From the moment I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, you have dealt ill with this people and you have not saved them. Right? So, and again, Moshe is restating that question, what is your name? Now Hashem answers, Vayidaber Elokim el Moshe. Elokim spoke to Moshe, Vayomer elav, and he said to him, Ani Havaya. You see that? Elokim spoke to Moshe and he said, you want to know my real name? My real name is Havaya. So there's a very powerful secret in this. You know, there's two ways of knowing Hashem, two ways of seeing Hashem. Right? We talk about a name. A name is only so that somebody can know me, right? If I'm really going to be for myself, I don't have a name for myself. Because I'm everything. To me, I'm everything. But to other people, I have names. So when we have a name for Hashem, we're again referring to what Hashem is doing in this moment. So there's two ways of seeing Hashem. One way of seeing Hashem is using our human eyes. So if we take a breath and we experience the miracle of our life. Or yesterday I met this woman. She wasn't Jewish, but she said to me, of course I believe in God. Look outside. Do you think all this happened by itself? So looking at the world and seeing that there's a creator to all of this, that's one way of seeing Hashem. You know, you can see Hashem, the creator, and you could know that the world didn't happen by accident. And you could still be a very depressed person. You could still be a miserable human being. You can still be a slave. It's possible to be aware that Hashem is keeping you alive every moment, and that the world is created by Hashem, and that all the creatures in the world are given food by Hashem. You open your hand and you provide for every living thing, and you can still be a miserable slave. This is my existence. And this is referred to in the name of Elokim. Elokim is the name that the Torah uses in the first verse of the Torah, Bereshis bara Elokim. In the beginning, God created, the Lord created the heaven and earth, which is to say, Elokim is the name of Hashem. And if we go back to verse if we go back to last week's Parsha, again to that moment that Moshe challenges Hashem, saying, "What is his name?" Right, which was chapter 3, verse 13. Vayomer Moshe el ha-Elokim. Moshe said to Elokim. Moshe said to this, I know you, God. Of course I know you. You're the creator of heaven and earth. You're the soul of every creature. You're the reason I'm alive. Vayomer Elokim el Moshe. So Moshe said to Elokim, what is your name? But how can you what you're talking now is about something completely different. You're talking about taking me out of Egypt. What's that? You given me life. Let me put it to you this way, God. It's true you've given me life, but my life sucks. So now you're coming and telling me that you're going to take me out of Egypt. I don't know what that's all about. How is it possible? This is something new. You're doing me a favor. All of a sudden, if a person says, Hashem created me, Baruch Dayan Emes, blessed is the true judge, God created me. Here's how we make peace with being a slave. Here's how we make peace with being a slave. Or with being miserable, or with having a life that sucks. How do we make peace with that? We say, Hashem created me. And Hashem has given me life every moment. And Hashem makes the rules. And the rules suck. The rules don't always feel good to me. But I recognize that I didn't make myself. In a way, the fact that Hashem is keeping me alive helps me to make peace with being a slave. If I put myself in slavery, then it's really miserable. But okay. The mystery, Hashem who put me in slavery, Hashem makes the rules. So he put me in slavery. He keeps everything alive, and he has this vast eternal plan. And so that vast eternal plan determines that I have to be a slave today. And that sucks. Okay, it sucks. But hey, what do I know? Right? That's one way of dealing with it. Now you want to come and tell me I'm going to take you out. So take me out. Why are you telling me you're going to take me out? You want me to have some liberation here? I don't know what that is. I don't know where that comes from. So you put me in new circumstances. Before I was a slave, and now I'll be free. Okay, it's just different circumstances. So that will suck less. Okay, fine. But he's not saying that. Moshe says to God, God says to Moshe, he's confused. Moshe doesn't know. What is the name? So look at again the words. Vayomer Moshe Elokim. Moshe said to the God of rules and of nature and of life. And Elokim said to Moshe, verse 15, okay, I will be what I will be. I want you to know something, Moshe. I am in all of my names. I am what I am, meaning no matter what name you use, I am there. I am in there. That's me. There's more to me than one name. And I show up in one name, and I show up in a different name, and I am in all of them. Now let me get specific. Vayomer od Elokim Moshe. And Elokim said further to Moshe, this is what you shall tell the children of Israel. Havaya, Yudke Vavke, the eternal, ineffable, transcendent, holy name of Hashem, which was the God of your ancestors. So this is not the God of life, this is the God of holiness. I should choose my words more carefully. This is not God that we see through life, through the fact that we are alive. This is God as we experience him in states of holiness and transcendence. It's God as we experience inspiration. It's God with whom we have a relationship. So, meaning when we think of God as simply the source of life, I have life, ants have life too, monkeys have life, all kinds of people, all lives matter, man, all lives matter. And we're in all of them. So but holiness means that there are special moments, and I have the ability to be connected in different ways. I have the ability to be connected to God, not just the passive recipient of life from God. And if we think about it, it's so important that we invoke the name of Abraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov in this case. Because Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were all our ancestors who had life-changing relationships with God. Unlike the people who just, a person who is kept alive by God is simply alive, okay? There's no me in the fact that I'm alive, right? Every teenager at one point or another said to their parents, I didn't choose to be born, right? Or we say to Hashem, I didn't choose to be kept alive. Now, how is it possible? How is it possible to see this in even in Egypt, in the darkest of the dark, in the hardest of times? Okay, I'm there, but Zeshmi Le'olam, I'm hidden. Right? It might be hard to see me sometimes. And this is, again, what brings us to the beginning of our Parsha today. Vayidaber Elokim el Moshe. And Elokim, that God that's keeping, that manifestation of God that's keeping us alive, Hashem says, me Hashem, I am available to have a relationship with you. Indeed, Va'era el Avraham el Yitzchak el Yaakov, v'kel shakai u'shmi Hashem lo nodati lahem. There's something, you think that they had a relationship with me, but actually you're going to have an even greater relationship with me. And this brings us to the higher awareness of the presence of Hashem, which is, again, this idea of holiness. This idea that it's not just about being alive. It's about finding the infinite in our life. It's about realizing that we can discover Hashem in this life. That we can be connected to Hashem in this life, right? Not just that Hashem is keeping me alive, but that I can feel connected, that I can be connected with Hashem. I can manifest His presence. that I can bring him. And now this addresses another question, which is when God takes, and that's really comes out in the rest of this Parsha, when God takes the Jewish people out of Egypt, he does so with 10 plagues. And the first 9 don't work. Why have 10 plagues? Matter of fact, going back to last week's Parsha, Moshe says to Paro, chapter 4, verse 23. That's on page 221. Verse 22, and you shall say to Paro, so says God, my son, Israel is my son, my firstborn. And I have said unto you, let my son go that he may serve me, and you have refused to let him go. Behold, I will slay your son, your firstborn. So this is the 10th of the plagues, right? Which will come up next week. That's what's going to do it ultimately. That's the 10th plague. And we know what the 10th plague is. Why the first? Why do we need the other 9 plagues? You could have finished this whole thing in one day. Just drop the atom bomb and the whole war is over. Why go through the whole thing? We read the Haggadah, and Rabbi Yehuda says, you know that moment that during the Seder where we drop the wine? Mm-hmm. And we do the 10 plagues, one at a time. Dam, blood, tzfardea, frogs, and we spill a little wine each time. But after that, there's another passage which says Rabbi Yehuda used to give mnemonics for the plagues. Ditzach, Adash, Be'achav. And many have the custom to do 3 drops of blood for the tzach, adash, ve'achav. It's so strange. Why does that go in the Haggadah? You ever wondered?
Can you say it again, the 3 words?
Ditzach, dam tzfardea kinin, adash, arov dever shechin, be'achav, barad ar bechoshech bechorot. Ditzach, adash, be'achav. If you write the first letter of each of the plagues in Hebrew, you'll get those. But he made it into 3 words. Now, on the face of it, it just seems to be a way of remembering the 10 plagues. But the fact that we spill blood for those 3 words indicates that there's more to the story. It's not just about, because after all, we know all the 10 plagues. We just spilled 10 drops for them. So it would make sense if we did the tzach hadash be'achav first. Oh, let me remind myself the 10 plagues. I'll do the 3 words, drop, drop, drop. And then I'll go back and I'll spell out all the 10 plagues. No, he does the other way around. First I say all the 10 plagues. And then I say, well, that's Rabbi Yehuda. So it's not just Rabbi Yehuda's teaching us. Rabbi Arnel says it's not just Rabbi Yehuda's teaching us. To remember the 10 plagues. The grouping of the 10 plagues is special. There's a teaching in the grouping. And Rabbi Yehuda is teaching us that there's a journey here, a spiritual journey, a transformation of our consciousness. Group the plagues as follows. Dam, tzfardea, kinin. Well, let's start like this. There are 3 questions that a person might ask. You would ask, does God control nature? Does God know who I am? And what is the nature of, what is the way in which God is in the world? Or let's say, does God control nature? Can I have a relationship with God? And what is God himself? So the first three plagues, Titzach, Dam, Tzfardea, Kinim, blood, frogs, and lice, bring Egypt to the source of their life, which they thought was the Nile, the water, as it irrigates the earth. And here you see, you thought that the Nile irrigates the earth and thus I live? No, look at this Nile. It turns into blood. Look at this Nile. It produces frogs in a craziness. And those frogs, normally amphibian creatures, are going into your home and even going into your ovens, which is against their nature. Look at this earth irrigated by the Nile. It turns into lice. So the very what you thought was your source of life, that has its fixed behaviors, watch those fixed behaviors change. So you'll see the finger of God, right? And at the end of these three plagues, right, we have blood, frogs, and lice. Let's go to the lice. Where is that? Chapter 8, verse 15, top of page 240. Or let's just go to verse 14, page 239. And the magicians tried with their secret arts to bring forth the lice, but they could not. And the lice, there were lice upon man and upon beast. And then the magician said unto Pharaoh, this is the finger of God. Right, so it took these three plagues to bring them to their first realization that God is running this element of the world, the water that irrigates the land. This is not a self. This is not a system that exists of its own accord. This is a system which is moved by the finger of God. And then we come to the next, plague, and that's Arov. It's Adash, Arov, Dever, Shechem. The wild beasts, the pestilence, and the boils. Now look at this verse, and here we ask the question, can I have a relationship with God? Does God know who I am? And the answer is yes. Don't just, so we start out reinforcing the first question. Does God give life? Does God give life to the entire world? Or is there some independent system? And the first three plagues tell us, come on, stop it. Of course Hashem gives life to the whole world, but that's not where it ends. Because you can be a slave. You can be a slave and know that you're kept alive by Hashem. There's deeper. You can have a relationship with Hashem. Hashem knows who you are. He knows your name. He knows where you live. And we see that in the plague of wild beasts. This is the first time we see the words that appear in verse 18 in Pasuk Yud Ches on page 240. Going back to verse 17, just to put it in context. If you do not send my people, if you do not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms
17.
I will put swarms of noxious animals. I will send swarms of noxious animals in you and in your servants and in your land and in your home, all of these wild beasts, and they will fill the houses of Egypt and also the land that they are on it. Verse 18. And I will set apart in that day the land of Goshen in which my people dwell, so that no swarms of wild beasts will be there. In order that you may know that I am God in the midst of the earth. That is, that I am here, Ki Ani Hashem, right? And what's that name of Hashem which is used? The Havaya. This is not just God keeping everything alive. It is what it is. This is holiness is present in the earth. You can experience me in the midst of the earth. And in order to do that, you have to know who you are, and you have to know that I know who you are, and that you and I are connecting. And I'll put a division between my people and your people. So we see right away the beginning of this identity relationship with Hashem. And then we come to the next plague. Dever, the plague. And we see the same thing showing up in verse 4, chapter 9, verse 4 on page 241. But of course, we go back one verse just to put it in context. For if you refuse to let them go, we'll hold them still. Behold, the hand of God is upon your cattle, which are in the field, upon the horses, upon the asses, upon the camel, upon the herds, and upon the flocks. There shall be a very grievous pestilence. And God shall make a division between the cattle of Israel and the cattle of Egypt. And there shall nothing die of all that belongs to the children of Israel. Right, and so here we're identifying this separate presence, this identity relationship between the Jewish people and God, or between people and God more broadly. But in order to do that, I have to know that I'm special, that I'm different, that Hashem knows who I am. And that's not just God, the source of life for the entire universe, in which I am but a fleck on a pale blue dot in the midst of a galaxy, in the midst of infinite galaxies. Hashem knows me. How is it possible that Hashem can know me? For this we need Hashem to be holy. Right? That's not just God keeping the world alive. This is something mystical, something mysterious, something precious. And we see the same thing in the last of this section of plagues. And this is the boils. And here we have page 243, verse 19. Right, it's in verse 20, but we'll go back again one verse just to put it in context. And therefore now hasten your cattle and all your beasts in the field, for every man and beast that shall be found in the field and shall not be brought home. No, I skipped one. I skipped the boils.
The boils is number 6, right?
Yes.
And the wild beasts is number 5. And 7th is hail.
Mhm.
That's what you were saying. Next question.
Mhm.
Do these three pneumatic words have meanings?
No, not really.
Okay.
No.
Can I ask another question?
Mhm.
Or am I
No,
taking
go ahead. Go
over
ahead.
your train of thought?
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Would you say that we're all sometimes in our lives slaves, according to your definition of slave, by just believing in creation until the redemption comes?
Oh yeah.
That everyone goes wavering back and forth between the two.
I'll tell you. Not only are we all slaves at different points in our life, we all wake up every morning a slave. Right? When we start our day, the first thing we become aware of is that we're alive, right? It isn't until we start to daven, start to meditate, start to open up our mind, start to open up that connection, until we do our first mitzvah, that we go out of that Egypt.
And that's why King Solomon can say that there's a time for everything.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So here we have, oh, here it is. Look at this is the example, verse 11, right? So verse 11, we'll go back to verse 10, right? This is the boils, right? So this is the third of the second section. Can I have a relationship with God? Verse 10, and they took soot of the furnace and stood before Paro, and Moshe threw it up heavenward, and it became a boil breaking forth with flames upon man and upon beast. Now here it is, verse 11. And the magicians could not stand before Moshe because of the boils, for the boils were upon the magicians and upon all the Egyptians. So here we have this clear difference between Moshe and the Egyptian magicians. They cannot, the Egyptians could not stand before Moshe because Moshe was not afflicted and they were afflicted. And here we see a different qualitative relationship, a different qualitative identity between the Egyptians and between Moshe Rabbeinu. And this is to say that Hashem knows you and he has made a special relationship with you. And then finally, the third section, Be'achav, Barod, Arve, Be'achav. Shchin, Barod, Arbe, Choshech, Bechoros. And so, of course, the verse 23, Ayet Moshe Mateu. So this is to tell us that there is something. What is Hashem? Can we know Hashem truly? No, we can't know Hashem truly, but we can know that there is more to this world than that is Hashem can operate. Not only does Hashem run the world, but it's possible to have transcendence in this world. There is more to this world than just existence. The world, so, and this is different than the other plagues, right? In the first three plagues, there's a different kind of magic than in the last four plagues. The middle plagues are not so magical, right? Blood, frogs, not so magical. Lice is pretty magical. Then what comes next after the lice?
Beetles.
Boils. Oh, Arov, the wild animals. Not so magical, just pretty annoying or threatening. Pestilence, not magical. Again, annoying. Boils, not magical, annoying. And now we go back to the magic. And now we have the hail. But the hail is magical. Look in verse 24. So there was hail and fire flashing up amidst the hail. Right? So you have fire and water coexisting. That's magical. The next one, which is going to be in next week's Parsha already. Right? Darkness, right? That the daytime would be dark. That it'll be dark in the middle of the afternoon for 3 days. I forget how the locusts fit into this. I forget. All right. But certainly the light, certainly the darkness in which the day itself becomes darkness, right? The day becomes not night, indicates that nature is itself malleable. So whereas the blood, where the water turns to blood, so it became something different, right? The dust turns into lice, became something different. I guess I see another parallel, right? That the two outer plagues, blood and lice, are magical. The middle one, the frogs, not so magical. And the same one here, you have the two outer plagues. The hail is pretty magical. The darkness, the 3 days of darkness is pretty magical. In between is locust. Locust matches the frogs. It's interesting. Something more to develop over here. So in any case, it tells us that this world doesn't just exist. That the way things are is the way they are because Hashem chose them to be the way they are. And I will just conclude with the difference between, the slave mentality, in which I say Hashem is keeping me alive, which means that I am what I am, and Hashem is animating me, versus what I am in this moment is truly a divine choice. What I am in this moment is a divine choice, because after all, fire and water can coexist. If they are being separated, it's because of a divine choice. And by identifying that and connecting with that, I can see that I'm able to connect with Hashem beyond in a deep and holy and transcendent way. Hashem, this world is of course kept alive by Hashem, is the first step of coming out of slavery. The second step is knowing that I can have a relationship with Hashem. and then I can have an identity connection with Hashem. And the third step is that knowing that what is what it is, because Hashem chose it to be so. And that in this moment, whatever it is, I am connecting to infinity. That Vayomer Elokim el Moshe, God who keeps the world alive, says, Ani Hashem. What you are seeing is the natural reality of this world is no less infinite than fire and water mixing. It's just that you're used to it. And you can find wonderment and excitement and transcendence and holiness, and there are no limitations, there are no limits. And the fact that you find yourself in a situation of slavery right now, it's a miracle. Realize that, and you're no longer a slave. And once the Jewish people have learned to come out, so the thing is that you can't take the Jewish people out of Egypt until they realize that they're not slaves. Because you can take somebody out of, you could give somebody all kinds of privileges, but if they're still complainers and whiners, then they'll find something to complain about in the new situation also. Right? But once somebody has an attitude once somebody has a liberated attitude, then the more liberated they are, the more privilege they have, the more opportunities they'll find.